Hi guys, James again, and taking a tiny break from doing the videos on my favorite TV show episodes from my favorite TV shows. I just had another list I started working on just the other day that I felt motivated to do and finish and do it for you guys today. So this one, and most of the videos, I suppose, are that I have now titled Hidden Gems instead of a lot of various movies you never heard of. This one's a little bit different as it's the top 10 hidden gems that have big stars in them. And they're generally movies that were released around the time of movies that made them big or shortly after. It wouldn't be before because then they weren't exactly well-known big stars yet. And while there are several movies that I've done on previous lists that deserve to be on this one, I try, for the sake of my videos here, I try to not repeat myself too much because there's a lot of lists that share a lot of commonality, a lot of similar themes, and I wouldn't want to have the same list of movies for every list. It just wouldn't be that interesting or diverse, and also it gives me more chance to talk about more hidden gems, that you've again likely never heard of. Gives them more movies more attention. So okay, so this one, as I said, top 10 hidden gems with big stars. So we've got number 10. This is a movie from 2005, and it's called 400 Days. And this one stars, most notably, Brandon Routh and Dane Cook. Dane Cook, famous comedian, also has done a string of successful movies like My Best Friend's Girl and Good Luck Chuck and stuff. And Brandon Routh was Superman in Superman Returns. He was in Scott Pilgrim and stuff. So I had picked this one up just because I thought it looked interesting, and I read the back. It sounded interesting. And it's basically a group of people who get picked to partake in this scientific test, where they stay down in this bunker, which ends up, it's a lot of white backgrounds, white surfaces. It almost looks like they'd be in a futuristic space station or on the moon or something like that. It just has that look. So spend 400 days down in this bunker. And it's an experiment, and they don't know exactly the point of the experiment or what it entails. But what ends up happening is it simulates a catastrophe or a crash, and they end up poking their head out the hatch to take a peek, and it appears as though some disaster or catastrophe has happened and the world has ended. They end up going to a nearby town, and there's creepy people inhabiting it, acting very strange, and a lot of weird stuff is going on. And you don't know, even by towards the end of the movie, whether or not, did this actually happen? Did it just happen as a coincidence of them being down in the hatch, or is this all part of the experiment? It's very interesting. Very interesting. I've only ever watched it once, but it did stick with me, and I do need to give it a second or third viewing to see if there's any clues I can pick up on. So that was 400 Days. Number 9, we have a movie from 2005 called London. And this one primarily stars Chris Evans, Jason Statham, and Jessica Biel. And this one came out shortly after, I believe, the first Fantastic Four movie. So Chris Evans was becoming very well known. He had also done The Perfect Score and stuff. So, and Jason Statham had already been in a few Guy Ritchie movies and The One with Jet Li, so he was becoming well known as well. And Jessica Biel had been well known for a long time, especially since Seventh Heaven and various movies. Rules of Attraction, as an example. This is sort of like a history of a relationship between Chris Evans' character and Jessica Biel's character. And Jessica Biel plays the title character, London. Her name is London in the movie. and it's sort of flashing back from current times to back when they were still together. They're broken up now, and they're kind of meeting up, breaking up, meeting up, and stuff. And Chris Evans, one of his best friends, is this drug dealer. Drug dealer, I suppose. Jason's played by Jason Statham, and they're sort of friends. He's trying to help him through it, and it keeps. I like how it keeps reflecting back on the relationship and how it felt, how it was good, and then how it fell apart, and will they ever get back together? It's a good movie. It's a good movie. London. Number 8 is a movie from 2003. It's called It's All About Love. This is a movie by Thomas Vinterberg, who is a collaborator of Lars von Trier. And this one stars Joaquin Phoenix and Claire Danes, primarily. And this is sort of a kind of a dystopian future movie where just in the near future, things are different, but they're different all over the world. But Joaquin Phoenix is coming back to New York to sign divorce papers. He's getting divorced from Claire Danes, who's a famous ice skater. And apparently it's completely natural to see dead bodies all over the place. They're coming down an escalator in the airport. There's a dead body there. Just step over him, sir. Well, you don't have that here? And apparently they're dying. A lot of them, it's almost like they're dying of sadness or a broken heart, but they're actually dying. And he's supposed to be there to get Claire Danes to sign divorce papers, and then he has to go because he's got to be somewhere in another country for a meeting that night or the following morning, I think. And he keeps getting delayed, and he needs to meet with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and things keep getting pushed in the way, and like he can't talk with her yet, or he can meet with her, but there's something sinister going on in that she believes she's in danger. And there are I don't want to get too much into it because it's a pretty intriguing movie, and it's very well shot. It's him finding out what danger she's in and what he can do to help her, and it's almost like she needs his help, but she has to push him away, and she can't say things directly, and the people around her she may not be able to trust. And it's, yeah, okay, I'm going to stop there because I'll get too much into it. And it's worth checking out. It's All About Love. Oh, also has Sean Penn he's in and out a few times. He plays Joaquin Phoenix's brother, who, for whatever reason, was always afraid to fly, but he took some injection to get him over his fear of flying, but they gave him too much in it, so now he can only fly. He says as much in the movie, but you always see him. He's up in a plane with an earpiece talking to Joaquin Phoenix's character. It's interesting. It's All About Love. Number 7, we have a movie from 1997 called Trojan War. Now, it's not about the Trojan War. Let me see what the guy's name is. He's the older brother from Boy Meets World. Will Friedle. But the main star of the movie, well, it's Will Friedle, but the bigger star of the movie is Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it's basically, they're basically best friends, him and Jennifer Love Hewitt. And he really lusts after the hottest girl in school. Well, he gets a chance to tutor her, and then she comes on to, he says the right things, and she comes on to him, and she wants to have sex with him, but he doesn't have a condom. So he has to go on this all-night journey across town and meeting all these crazy, interesting characters in the quest to get a condom. Hence, and like coming up against like the Mexican gang members and this insane bus driver, awesomely played by Anthony Michael Hall of Breakfast Club fame. And hence kind of where the name Trojan War comes from. It's his war. He's waging a war to get a condom and get back to this girl, not realizing he has the Jennifer Love Hewitt as his best friend, who's always had a crush on him. He just hadn't realized it. And it's a. I remember seeing the trailer, and I thought it was always very funny looking. And I've only been able to find it on VHS. I still have the VHS. Can't find the DVD or Blu-ray anywhere. Not sure if they exist even. And had a great Vandals track, I Have a Date, playing over the trailer. That's how I started listening to the Vandals a bit. So, Lee Majors is also in there. David Patrick Kelly. Oh man, assorted cast of characters. It's a very fun, quirky romantic comedy. Trojan War. Number 6, we have a movie from 2007 called How to Rob a Bank. And this one primarily stars Nick Stahl. You've also got Erica Christensen, Terry Crews, and Gavin Rossdale in one of his few film roles. But this is basically a guy who's disgruntled with the bank he deals with. He has a great monologue to open up the movie about ATMs and stuff. But he basically gets caught up in a bank robbery orchestrated by Gavin Rossdale. And he meets up with Erica Christensen, who's one of the bank tellers, and he gets stuck in between the bank robbers, led by Gavin Rossdale, and the cops trying to negotiate a resolution to the situation, led by Terry Crews. And it's very, very funny. Oh man, it's such a unique take on bank robberies and the people involved. I think it has an alternate title, and it's How to Rob a Bank in brackets and 10 tips to actually get away with it. And they list 10 tips for robbing a bank in the movie, and it's just, I wouldn't take it too seriously, but it's worth a watch. How to Rob a Bank. Number 5, we have a movie from 1994 called Brainscan. And this one stars Edward Furlong. So this came out like just a couple years after Terminator 2, Judgment Day, where Edward Furlong made his name in. And this one, for the longest time, I only had the VHS, found that there was a copy online, and I just, a few days ago, found that they had put out, Scream Factory had put out a Blu-ray of it. So it's like, well, I have to have this. And it's such a good movie because he's a long-time, well, not a long-time gamer, he's a teenager, but he's one of those seasoned gamers, and he gets introduced by his best friend to this new revolutionary interactive game called Brainscan. It's supposed to be the most terrifying mind trip of a video game. And so he tries it out, and it interacts with his brain somehow and like puts him in the role of a serial killer, and he has to play it and solve these, like, perform a murder and remove clues and remove witnesses, but some of the stuff he's doing is actually happening. Like, he kills a guy and takes a piece of evidence and hides it in his freezer as part of the game, and it turns out he actually did do it, and it's in his freezer. And it has a great villain in the movie who's sort of like the voice of the game, but the guy who's egging him on, and it's a character called the Trickster, played by T. Ryder Smith, who I think I've seen other stuff that he's in, but you wouldn't recognize him naturally because he's under so much makeup. He's this wild-looking character, just red mohawk hair going all over the place, long fingers, and all the makeup on his face. Such a great 90s horror thriller, kind of. Yeah, something like that. Brainscan. Number 4, we have a movie from 2006 called The Return. Now this one stars Sarah Michelle Gellar. And it also has like Adam Scott in there and Sam, what's his name? Actor who has since passed away, but he was a playwright, actor. Sam. Oh, for crying out loud. Sorry. I'm gonna feel stupid when I find this. Sam Shepard. Sorry. And Sarah Michelle Gellar sort of plays a. She's a traveling businesswoman, and she goes around from town to town, and she has a stuff that happened in her traumatic event that happened when she was a little girl, and she gets to this certain part of town, and she starts experiencing. It's almost like a mystery / ghost story, where these strange things start occurring, and she starts having visions and nightmares of a murder that happened about 15 years ago. And they sort of coincide with when the trouble in her life began. And she comes around and like visits with her dad, and she is sort of a strained, not estranged, but has a strained relationship with her father. And there's some sort of connection between what happened to her and what's going on. And so she starts to investigate the events from 15 years ago. Some vicious brutal murder that happened. This guy that she meets, his wife was murdered 15 years ago, and she becomes involved with him. But she's wondering why she's having memories and visions of this murder that happened 15 years ago, and what it has to do with her. And this one came out, I think, shortly after The Grudge. It didn't get much recognition, or I guess exposure. That's the word. Didn't get much exposure after like she did The Grudge and The Grudge 2, and this sort of came out in between, but it had a limited release. I remember seeing previews for it. I've just got the DVD, but I remember seeing previews for it. It didn't come to our theater in St. Thomas. I don't know how many theaters it went to. It's a very good murder mystery / ghost story kind of thing. The Return. Number 3, we have a movie from 2000 called Under Suspicion. Now, there's one from years earlier called Under Suspicion, but this is one from 2000. It stars Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, and Thomas Jane. It also has Monica Bellucci in there. You've got Gene Hackman playing a seasoned district attorney who gets called into the police station for just a 10-minute chat about details or anything he can tell him about a young girl who was raped and murdered recently. And there's a string of rape murders that have happened, at least 1 or 2, I think. And they secretly suspect him of being the prime suspect. He's this well-respected attorney, and now the cops think he's the prime suspect in this rape / murder spree. And the thing is, he doesn't exactly have a solid alibi. Upstanding citizen, but his actions of late are a little questionable. And they are calling them into question because he can't back up what he's saying. And he's got the cops against him. And it ends up being like down for a 10-minute chat, and he's in the police station pretty much all day. And they're trying to pick apart his story and pin this on him. And you've got his wife, played by Monica Bellucci, who starts to doubt him, and everything he's saying is wrong, and you don't know whether to believe him or the police until the very end. And I remember seeing this. It was done by Stephen Hopkins, and the guy who was one of the creators of 24. But the movies he's done on his own are fantastic. Like he did Judgment Night, and oh man, fantastic director, fantastic movie. Under Suspicion. Number 2, from 2001. This is a movie called The Pledge. And this is one I saw back in college, my last year of college. And I remember one girl on my floor coming back from seeing it, and she basically said, "Don't see this movie. It's terrible, it's horrible." So naturally I have to go see it. Based on a book by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, German author, I think. And I ended up finding the English translation, I think, in a strip mall in Michigan. But I saw this movie, and it stars Jack Nicholson, Benicio del Toro, Aaron Eckhart, and Robin Wright. And all very well known, and Benicio del Toro plays a very small role as a murder suspect, even though he had already been in big movies like Traffic, Usual Suspects, Swimming with Sharks, and he plays a very small role in this movie. Aaron Eckhart's sort of a supporting role, because Jack Nicholson is a cop, longtime police detective who's retiring, and Aaron Eckhart is sort of his protege taking over. And they find a girl's body who's been raped and murdered, I think, maybe. And so there's evidence of a serial killer, and they pin it on Benicio del Toro, who they pretty much beat or coerce a confession out of. But Jack Nicholson's character doesn't believe that this is the guy. But he's no longer a cop. So he all of a sudden wants to help, but it's like, you're retiring. This isn't your job anymore. Go retire. Like, leave this up to us. But he doesn't think they're doing a good job. So he sort of takes it upon himself to keep investigating this. And he moves to a smaller town, gets involved with a woman who lives there, and like buys this convenience store to run, and all under the auspices of continuing this investigation on his own, no longer being a cop. All because he basically made a solemn pledge to the mother of the girl who died, who was murdered, that he was going to solve this case, even though he's not a cop anymore. And you've got cameos from, what's his name? From the Saw franchise. I think he was what was his name? Saw 5. Costas Mandylor. As a cop from another county he tries to enlist help from. And a single scene cameo, and probably one of my favorite scenes of an actor crying, breaking down, that I've ever seen in a movie, by Mickey Rourke. This single scene is the finest acting I've ever seen Mickey Rourke do, in my opinion. It's a great, great murder mystery. And directed by Sean Penn. I neglected to mention, sorry. So this is The Pledge. Number one, we have a movie from 2002 called The Salton Sea. This was, what was his name? Stars Val Kilmer. But you've also got supporting roles by Peter Sarsgaard, Vincent D'Onofrio, Adam Goldberg, Luis Guzman. No, it's not Peter. Yeah, Doug Hutchison, Anthony LaPaglia, Glenn Plummer, Deborah Kara Unger, Chandra West, B.D. Wong, Arlie Ermy. There is a lot of people. Meatloaf is in there. Josh Todd, the lead singer of Buck Cherry. Danny Trejo, who I neglected to mention. I forgot. He was also in Trojan War. It's basically DJ Caruso's directorial debut. Guy who did I Am Number 4, Eagle Eye, Triple X, Return of Xander Cage. Most notably, though, he did Disturbia, starring Shia LaBeouf. Anyway, but this is basically a guy who goes... he was like a well-known musician, a trumpet player, and his wife is murdered, and he basically spirals down and becomes engrosses himself in the drug world, becomes a drug addict in order to work his way into the drug world and find out the corrupt cops who murdered his wife. You think he's just a druggie, but he's doing this. He's basically, it's almost like The Pledge, where he's taken it upon himself. He's not a cop. He's taken it upon himself to go undercover in this world to find the corrupt cops who murdered his wife. And it's a beautiful movie. And I always notice it because I still have the poster on my wall near my kitchen. Poster was like, what is it? It's a picture of a sort of, I don't know if it's the Salt Flats or something, but there's this sort of oasis with a tree, but you've got Val Kilmer with his back to, and he's got this very huge, elaborate, almost full back tattoo, which is just amazing. And sort of like, if you're looking for the truth, you've come to the wrong place. And it's a beautiful poster, but it's a beautiful looking movie. And one of the finer acting performances by Val Kilmer that I believe I've ever seen in a movie before or since. Yeah, so that's The Salton Sea. And okay, so that's all 10 of those. And so I will be getting back to more of the top TV show episodes. But until then, toodles.